Good morning, and a very early morning at that for us over here. Sarah Badwi with Paul Verderosa on Breeders' Cup
Yeah.
Saturday edition of Talking Horses, and big day yesterday with the juveniles. I can't say that I was right about much of anything, but Lake Victoria showed up in a big way.
Yeah, I really loved the way she ran yesterday. She didn't get the ideal break either, too. She was up against it from the start. And Ryan Moore will make you sweat a little bit sometimes on horses like that, just waiting and waiting and waiting, kind of like Pat Day-esque, and found that seam. And boy, did she run! She ran faster than the Colts did, too.
Yeah, she
A
was
few
impressive.
races later, too. So she was the goods in there. And I did like gaming yesterday. I really thought gaming was going to go by.
I mean, the whole
Stablemate. I mean, you could just never count out Baffert horses, no matter what the odds out there with 2-year-olds.
Yeah, the whole complexion of that race did change a bit with East Avenue not breaking, but I mean, sometimes you got to inherit the lead when you can, and it really seemed as though he did have the keys to the race with how the pace would go. And once nobody else was there, I mean, Martin Garcia did the right thing and just went on with it.
Yeah, it was good to see them reunite as well, Martin Garcia and Bob Baffert, because they've had an up and down
Plenty of
relationship.
history.
Yeah, yeah, plenty of history. A lot of jocks have plenty of history with certain
Sure.
trainers, for sure.
So yeah, it tends to run with the territory. But we have an 11 race card here today. We have a couple of stakes on the program as well. So in between those Breeders' Cup races, make sure you're checking out our action here. And the best way to play, as you already know, that's with Naira Bets. And you can go ahead and get signed up if you're not already. You'll want to get signed up and get that $200 bonus. $25 free bet as well with the promo code CUP25. Of course, that's Arthur's ride there for the Breeders' Cup Classic, which will be run later today. We'll see if he has any pace to contend with, unlike the juvenile yesterday. But we also have track stats. If you're wondering how the track is playing, what positional speed or closers are winning, how everything is going with statistics here. Matthew DeSantis works tirelessly. He never sleeps. He's like the city that never sleeps himself. He's always doing something horse racing related, so you can definitely check those out over on NairaBets.com. When you're playing today's races through Naira Bets, be sure to opt in and get that 10% exacta profit boost. If you hit any exacta on any Breeders' Cup race at Del Mar, you'll get a 10% bonus. Be sure to opt in over at Naira Bets. And today's show, we're starting early as we are really making sure that everybody is awake and ready to go. 11 a.m. for today's coverage on FS2, as we'll get into the first race today, which lost a main player with scratches, a horse that I know that you and I both ended up going for, and that's the number 4 Concord Spirit, who's not going to be in here today, and kind of a muddied group after that. Where did you end
Yeah.
up going?
Scratched into Braca. That's going to be one of these recurring themes
Scratched
today,
into?
scratching into something. I lost 3 picks, I think, today. It's always a great start. You can start that way early in the morning. But you know what? I ended up, I had this horse originally second, and I didn't change my picks after this. If you go back 3 starts to July 18th, just a question of whether or not you wanted to be inside that day. Ended up being wide, and then start after that on July 31st. Speed was pretty good. He was up against it that day. He kind of lost position, got knocked around a little bit. And then he got bet off that. He was the favorite 2 starts back off of that and got a decent enough trip in there. Just really didn't have any punch late. And then went to the turf for whatever reason last time out, going 6. Now gets back to the dirt. Again, in for the 30. I mean, he's exposed. The horse is what he is at this point. But with what's left in here, he's run some of the faster races that
He
this group has
has.
put together. So I'm just going to stick with my pick in here and hope the 3 gets a little bit of a trip in here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the horse that's going to inherit that favoritism is the number 5, Big Ego, who I feel he's also had his chances, and he's certainly familiar with not getting the job done at a short price, as we've seen throughout many of his starts.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting a little bit tired of him, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at it from a standpoint, I mean, he's putting, I don't know. He's had his chances and some of his races. He's another horse that we go back and we talk about these horses that should have won some races
By now.
that he's been in. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just hard to take in here. I am not sure if the blinkers are going to make any bit of a difference today. We'll see what happens. But, I mean, if you base it on the race that we saw and then the race last time out, I mean, certainly the figures make him competitive in here.
Yeah, I mean, he has some of the faster races, and I think that you could argue he was certainly facing much tougher competition to start his career, but he's gone through a couple of capable barns, and I know that he ends up in another one now who has some decent numbers first off the claim, especially with cutting horses back on the dirt. It's a small sample size, but he does do well with that and has a positive ROI. So I don't know. I just don't want to take him at a short price that he's now going to be. At least he was
Yeah.
going to be the second choice before in all likelihood, but now he's going to be your favorite. And so I went to a horse that I originally had picked second, and that's Take the Gold, who did show some speed at a huge price first time out at Horseshoe Indy. And I know that he tried the turf for the $40,000 tag versus the state breds. There's not a lot of dam side production with this horse, and maiden claimers on the dirt, John Toscano Jr. It's not exactly overwhelming numbers, but that race that he ran at Horseshoe Indy actually was okay. With the winner of that race, Bow Street, he'd had his chances, but he was running numbers that were just quite a bit faster than anybody in this field has been capable of. He ran an 85 buyer, winning again next out. And at least he showed some speed first time out. I can always be forgiving of a debut. And so maybe he's not good enough, and he's certainly not going to be a price now. But I just wanted to go with somebody other than your favorite.
Yeah, I mean, really, if he breaks today, I mean, who else are you concerned about getting in front of him? I mean, maybe the 7 is going to show a little bit of speed. I can't see Big Ego just running and gunning from the spot that this horse isn't in there today. So I think the 7's probably the horse you're going to have to hold off a little bit early on.
Yeah, and I wanted to have a little bit more interest, and I do now with scratches in Maximus Monster, the 2. But when you sell for $80,000 and you debut over a year later as a gelding for $30,000 and you're half to excellent timing, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. And Pat Reynolds, too, for what it's worth, 0 for 8 with 3 in the money. Maiden claiming first-time starters sprinting on the dirt here at Naira the last 5 years. I had the horse third in here just because of the field, and I figured looking around, I really just wanted some kind of price to spice things up. But now, I mean, everything's going to completely change since the 4 came out. So you're going to have to take some short prices. I think the board actually is going to be what you see now. I know it's early, but what you see now is probably going to be between the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 5. You're going to see pretty much all lumped together in here.
Yep, we had one big favorite, and now it's a little bit muddied as we go into race number 2, starting the stakes action early on. And we have the Nashua Stakes, and I think that this is a competitive, compact field as well. And you can make a case for many of the contenders in here. We'll start with It's Hammer Time and Tony Eclipse, who ran 1-2 at Delaware last time out. And I liked that It's Hammer Time was able to handle the stretch out in distance and sit just off of Tony Eclipse, who is towards his inside yet again.
Yeah, what I love about It's Hammer Time, too, is the race got deeper here. Just his stride, just watch it. It got stronger, as they got down to the line, as he pulled away from Tony Eclipse. So I don't think going from the 2 turns back to the 1 turn is going to hurt this horse at all. I mean, in Tony Eclipse's case, I just think he's going to have to get a little bit faster in here to beat It's Hammer Time. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the race he ran 2 starts back in the maiden special weight and then the race here that we looked at too. But I just think, at the end of the day, It's Hammer Time is probably a better horse than Tony Eclipse. We're going to find out today, but they both have to replicate these figures here in New York.
They do.
And that's the little bit of the question mark I had with them, and that's why I ended up ultimately putting them second and third, because I just wasn't sure if they can do it here.
Yeah, and we don't have him in our top selections, but Stelly Do Right is a cool horse. I just kind of wonder if he was one that was that precocious 2-year-old that was really showing up with a little bit of a bias-aided victory when he won impressively at Belmont at Saratoga. But he's been consistent. I mean, we'll take a look at his last race at Laurel, and I thought he ran fine in here. It wasn't off the turf race. We know what he was intended for this entire time, but I just don't know that he's going to get the right kind of setup in here. I think that he was a little bias-aided when he won here, and I think that he's just one that we've seen enough races from where we know who he is at this point.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get the fast pace that he probably needs. But I will say, though, I mean, he's had legitimate trouble, 2 starts back when he kind of got out of the gate a little slow, bumped around, then he got steadied late. And last time out, I mean, he ended up like 6-7 wide in the lane, which isn't usually the recipe for a win down at Laurel either. So, putting the blinkers on today, maybe it keeps him a little bit closer to a pace that's not going to be as hot today. I wonder how it's going to affect him at the end of the mile today. But as far as from a horse standpoint I mean, he's cool. I like seeing him, and he's proven here in New York that he can win.
Yeah, that is true. And that's the same case for Vekoma Rides, who you went to, who is dropping in class from the Champagne.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Champagne killers in this race, and I feel like the argument can be made for him that we're going to find out today if he really wants to go the mile against a group like this as compared to a group in the Champagne. In his maiden special weight race, I thought that was a really good race, and I thought it was a good time because considering we were kind of on like the slower side when we came back here a little bit, so I think that 112 is better than it actually looks for the final time. But for me, I think today is the day we see if he gets the mile. I think he's got a nice outside post to just sit off of anything that develops inside of him and make one run in here. So, and it's definitely an easier group. I mean, come on, there's
Wow.
no chance for Patrick, who, by the way, I mean, listen, he had no chance yesterday with the way the
No, I
pace set up
mean,
yesterday. So
that
I don't
race
hold that race
was,
against him
yeah,
at
that
all.
race was totally different from
You
a
know,
dynamic standpoint when
yeah.
East Avenue didn't break. But um, look, this is not the field that he faced last time.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's a little bit easier, and I think he gets a nice outside trip in here and sits probably off of Tony Eclipse, and maybe it's Hammer time, gets first run on a Studley do right, and maybe can hold everybody else. So we'll see if he wants the mile today. I think that's the biggest question
Yeah.
mark, if you
Yep,
like him
I
today,
agree.
is he going to get the mile? Because this is the field that he should be able to do it against.
Right, exactly. I'm with you 100% on that as we move to the third race where we have the New York Breds again, and it's a 7 furlong maiden special weight and executive move. He's had a couple of opportunities. He's run well. He's finished second in many of his starts, but he's going to be a very short price, especially with some of the other potential contenders coming out of this race with the number 2. I know you had interest in, and I was
Yeah.
going to go for Accidental Bid, but we can take a look at executive move finishing second, as he has tended to do, behind Sorority Prank. And I mean, this is a day where I won't say that I felt it was a very strong inside speed bias, but I think that it helped horses to be a little bit more towards the inside and be forward. And Sorority Prank has run some quick races in the past, even though it took him a long time to finally get to the winner's circle. Blinkers do go on here. I'm just a little bit less enthused about him, especially with some less speed in this race, I think.
Yeah, I just feel like that was a total hang job last time out for this horse. I mean, Sorority Prank was 0 for 13 going in. And
Right.
while, I mean, Sorority Prank was inside, he did kind of drift out a few paths. And, Executive Move came in a bit off of the turn. So it's not like they were exactly both down on the rail or as far as wide at the end of the day. I just couldn't take him. I ended up scratching him into second in here. I don't know. I'm just kind of starting to see enough. The last 2 starts left a little to be desired for him. Don't get me wrong. He's run probably some of the
Faster
best
races.
races in this group, but he's kind of hard to take now at what's probably going to be a really short price.
Those blinkers would have to put a little bit more speed into the running style
Yeah.
that we've seen from him as of late. And I think that the lack of speed in this race also ends up impacting the horse that you picked on top, who I looked at for a while, Clancy Fancy. But he's run some races that are all right, and I think that while he did improve very much so on the turf last time out, he still has numbers that compete with this group.
Yeah, I mean, turf speed doesn't necessarily, obviously, go into dirt speed. But for me, scratching into him, I had him second anyway. I think it's interesting he's going back to the dirt. If you go back and look at a couple of his races, he's been wide, in his last couple of dirt starts. 3 starts back, he did show some more forwardness at least, being up closer to a 22 quarter. So maybe he will be more forward here today. I mean, I don't think he's going to be on the lead in here, but I think he'll probably sit a stalking trip anyway. And getting back to the dirt and not really wanting to take executive move in here, I mean, my options were kind of limited at
Yes.
the end of the day. And even the horse you took on top, an Ironman Ira, I mean,
I don't like this horse. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't like him at all. And then the horses that I did like came out of this race, and I just wanted a horse that I thought I had a little bit more confidence in might be forward.
yeah.
And that's about it, because he needs to find the race that he ran 3 starts ago or the one before that. And it's been a little bit of some extended time between those efforts. But I think either of those efforts, and we saw Jose Gomez ride very well yesterday.
He's
And
aggressive when he needs to be, for sure.
I'm just hoping that he ends up going to the lead and nobody can catch him. And that's about all the argument that I have for Ironman Ira, because that last start, clearly something did not go
Well,
according to plan.
No, well, to be fair, though, I mean, he really knocked himself around in the gate. I mean, if you
did.
go back and you watch
Yep.
it, he banged his head in the gate. Like, you could see he wrapped himself pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that played a role in it. Now he's had a little bit of time off and, coming back here.
Pace fell apart a little bit in the race
Yeah.
prior to. There are some things to make a small case for.
We'll see.
We'll see. We will see, indeed. I wanted to like Tiz the Prince a little bit more, but he just needs to get out of the gate.
Yeah. He's kind of tough to take, coming out of the gate, especially, and then no speed, and Blinker's
Yep.
coming off today.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Heading on to the 4th race, we have another stakes here, the Artie Schiller Stakes, and I was actually watching back not that long ago the 2004 coverage of the Breeders' Cup, and Artie Schiller was a 3-year-old and actually went off as your favorite with Richie Migliori aboard, and then ended up having a terrible trip down towards the inside, but he avenged himself eventually after that, and now we have this race named after him here. He was very cool kind of guy, as we both agree in this spot that Big Everest is going to take yet another Artie Schiller Stakes, and we can take a look back at his Artie Schiller from last year, where I think that he got a great ride to end up ducking towards the inside. And I feel as though there is not a ton of speed in this race because with Fort Washington, they went last time and it didn't work out. And I wonder if they are hesitant to repeat that plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think on its face, Big Everest is the clear-cut speed of this race, unless you think maybe Running Bee's going to press him from the outside, or maybe Sky's not falling. Because I agree with you. I think Fort Washington, that just was not the best way to go last time out. I know he's a quirky little horse to kind of ride, and he doesn't break the best, but last time he did, and he kind of broke forward, so I think they tried putting him on the lead or close to the pace anyway. So I think a mile's too short for Fort Washington anyway. But Big Everest, I think, it's funny when you look at Big Everest and you see that he's just following the same pattern, too, that he's followed coming into this race like he did last year and
I
even the
agree.
year before with, running prior at a mile and stuff like that. So I think by far, he's the best horse in the race. I think Kendrick's going to be aggressive with him. So I think you're going to see him probably up front. And I just think when he's here, he just likes it here. Home cooking for him is probably better than being any place else. And I don't think the mile's going to be a problem for him, where I think, a horse like Fort Washington, it might be a little bit too short.
I see your point on that for sure. And I think with Fort Washington, too, he didn't exactly do the wrong thing by trying to be forward last time because that race did not project to have much speed.
No, I
And
mean, he
so
finally broke well, too.
I
for
would
a
I would
change.
always rather
Yeah.
appreciate a rider try to move instead of not making a move and have it not work out. But we'll take a look back at when he finished behind Running B, who, I mean, both of them ran well in that Bernard Baruch, but I just don't really think that they're going to get the same kind of setup that either of them necessarily prefer. And Running B is going to be a little bit out of his style by having to be right there pressing Big Everest, and I think that Dylan will do just that because that's what he needs to do to be effective. But I think both of them want to come from a little bit further off the pace.
I agree. I think in Running B's case, definitely going to take money, too. You look at the last start, I mean, come on, you got all horses that are running in the Breeders' Cup, today coming out of
You think
that
more
last
than
race.
looks is going to be 20 to 1?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, Spirit of St. Louis was even in that race, who came back to win the Mohawk last time out, too. So I just question with horses like Running Bee in Fort Washington if the mile really suits them. I think sometimes they want to go a little bit longer as compared to the mile. But I think Running Bee is probably the second most likeliest winner in here behind Big Everest. So like you, I agree in here that, it's 4s and 5s for me.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And St. Anthony, I mean, he did not run well last time, but he had a trip in that race over at Monmouth. And I think that if you go back to some of his prior efforts, maybe he's not quite as at the same level as Big Everest and Running Bee, but I think that he's a horse that could easily run well in this spot. And I like him a little bit more at this distance, I would say, than a horse like Fort Washington. So I don't want to totally say that he has no opportunity as we head into the fifth race, and we're going a mile, and these are the $12,500 claimers, and no scratches in this race to make it any easier whatsoever. But you do have a big favorite towards the outside with the number 8, Valenzen Day, who, I mean, he was a little bit of a promising 2-year-old, and then we didn't see him for a while, and now he's sort of come back into running against foes that he can be competitive against. He's been running well and in good form as of late. He's easily the horse to beat, but you and I both went in a different direction.
He's easily the horse to beat, and he's run the best numbers, and now Linda's got him back again for a third time in her barn. I just wonder if you look at the last couple of races, and listen, granted, probably going to win those races anyway, but was he helped out by the track, being inside and being in front? So I think that's a question you have to ask yourself. Again, if he runs close to any of his other races, he's probably going to win here. He's the most likeliest winner. But I just question a couple of those races based on the track and just based on the way the pace played out.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and I don't know that we're going to see a 90 buyer again, but we might. Who knows? I mean, the track has been playing fairly quickly at times over this meet. I just wonder if gemography is going to show any sort of speed that could be at all contentious with Valenzen Day. He is coming back fresh. We know that Ruben Silvera is aggressive, and so I thought that that might be a slight thorn in his side if they do decide to be as aggressive with gemography as maybe they could be. But Valenzen Day, he could just be faster and end up taking this field gate to wire. So he's not a favorite that I'm against in terms of multi-race wagers, but I just wanted to pick somebody else on top, and I ended up going with I Am the Law. But you like Mr. Swagger a little. You talk about him first.
Yeah, drops again off the win a little bit, and it's funny because last time out when you watched that race going the mile, I know the field was what it was, but I mean he was one of just two horses. I mean because the Knight was running a little bit, but he was running a little bit more than because the Knight at the end of the mile. I just thought when you looked at this race, we were talking about a little bit about the pace, and you were talking about gemography. I also thought last time out. Daddy knows it was quirky sometimes too. Showed a little bit more of that forwardness and
Yep.
that speed too. So I'm just wondering, you know, the 8 may not make the simplest of leads today, especially if the 4 and 6 decide to go out there. And I was hoping Mr. Swagger was going to be in a good spot with Katie Davis like last time and just pounce and grind it out at the end and fight it out for a win in here. And I figured I was going to get a really good enough price on this horse to give this horse a shot in here. I know it's a tougher spot, even though it's a little bit of a drop with some of the horses that are in here. But you know what? I'm willing to take a chance that maybe the 8 was aided by the tracks that he's been running on and a little bit more speed and gets hooked a little bit early on, someone from off the pace. Gets him.
And I think something with Daddy knows, we know that this is a horse that tends to drift out. We've seen
Yes.
certain riders really get attuned to that style and then be able to keep him in a straighter path. But I think that sometimes he is so headstrong and just really wants to do what he wants to do. And so if you are interested in a horse to his outside, maybe you want to take another look at somebody else because they could end up drifting a little
Yeah.
bit. So maybe something worth considering. But with I Am the Law, he's just been facing better horses.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he can run much anymore, but if you look back on some of the starts, he's had wet tracks, sloppy sealed surfaces in many of them. He's been running against horses that are just much tougher than the field that he's going to be facing today. He did have that one race at Saratoga. That was a much tougher field as well. It was a voided claim, and now he does come back in here. It's a red flag, as you can tell from the big drop in class that he's taking, but I think that overall, he's just kept the best company in quite some time compared to who everybody else has been facing overall.
And I find it interesting, too, that they're putting blinkers on him today, too, for the comeback, too. So I wonder if they're going to try and get him a little bit more forward as well, just to mix things up a little bit going the mile. I think it is a question on whether or not, he can run
Yes.
anymore. I mean, we'll find out. We'll find out today because I thought, the last 2 starts weren't that good. Again, much better horses, but we'll find out today. I mean, for 12.5, there's a couple of horses in here that are tougher if they run their races.
Sure.
If they come back and run their races well. I mean, which is a question mark at this level with any horse. But we'll see what happens with I Am the Law. I'm not as big on him as you are. But
Well,
we'll
that's
find
okay. I
we'll,
mean,
we'll find out today. Like I said, we got two completely opposite directions, and the 8 will win by 10. So
yeah, right, exactly. Well, moving on to race number 6, and that is another New York bred race. We have the 2-year-olds going out for a maiden, claiming $40,000 tag, and it seems like the top 2 horses in as far as the morning line are going to be the ones that make quite a bit of sense in here with Gimme Gimme and Monte Avi. I didn't really want to go in that direction of either of them. They can both win, as we'll take a look back at their last race together, but I don't know. I just wanted somebody that seemed like a bit of a new face, though I did think that Monte Ave showed some decent speed.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think either one of them wowed you.
No.
With like any, what I'm
wow is a nice word.
Yeah,
A generous-
I don't think any
generous
one of them are
phrase.
going to wow you with the performance that they had last time out. I mean, it was nice to see Monteavi just have a little bit more speed, and made that run into the pace and got in front and then just kind of gave way late. I mean, in Gimme Gimme's case, we've seen what Gimme Gimme can do, in
Yes.
2 starts. It's basically almost the same run, although last time actually put in a much more better effort to almost make the lead before giving way. I don't know. I didn't want either one of them in here at what I thought was going to be short prices. I thought there were a couple of other interesting horses. You have one on top. I have the other.
Yeah, I mean, you went to a horse who is trying this surface for the first time, but taking a drop in class with resistance futile. I feel as though there's a couple that are interested in this one. Give me the spiel.
I just like the turf to dirt angle, cutting back in distance. And I think the biggest thing is that this horse actually showed a little bit of life last time going long on the turf. So I'm hoping today, big jockey switch today too, getting Ray Lou up. Ray Lou's a rider who can get a horse out of a gate. And I'm just hoping that that's what happens today and gets this horse at least, in good position, if not in front in this race. I'm just hoping for a better break and a good trip in here. And I'm not really... the turf pedigree just wasn't really like super strong on this horse
No, the
either to
dam's
me
all
anyway.
dirt.
Yeah. So I think the dirt's a better fit and the drop in class too I think is going to help. So I think when you put all that together, throwing the kitchen sink at this horse and the rider change
The
and
kitchen
hopefully a much
sink.
better aggressive break
Haven't heard
break
that in a
today.
while.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, this is a race where it's tough to really sink your teeth into too many horses. I went to the number 2 Rockable, who is going out for Linda Rice in here. He's a half to Acoustic Ave, who was a very precocious 2-year-old. He won a couple of those state bred stakes races, including one, the Aspirant, the Notebook, and then another at Finger Lakes as well. I think he ran third in the funny side here in his second start. So there is that precocity in terms of the sibling, and I thought that he could be one adding the blinkers that could just improve second time out. I will say Linda Rice, she's not typically known for her success with her first time starters, but she has had quite a bit more this year, I think, than we've seen
Yeah,
in
it's
years
picked up a
past.
little bit. Yeah.
And I really like that workout that this horse was able to put in. Maybe just didn't love the sloppy sealed track last time, and maybe was just facing a better field. So I'm just hoping he improves with a little bit of experience and some of that pedigree can shine through for this one. Do you want to take a break now and we'll come back?
Yeah.
Let's do that. All right, we'll take a quick break and hear from our sponsor at Saratoga Water.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to the early Talking Horses on Breeders' Cup Saturday. Sarah and Paul here, and we'll get into race number 7 as we do have a maiden special weight for those 2-year-old New York breds going the 7 furlongs. And I think that National Identity is a horse that I would have likely picked on top originally before scratches if he was not now part of an entry. But I thought he was very impressive first time out with a wide journey, was attending a pace with horses that had some experience and had some races under their belt. And he was always out widest of them. A little bit of shifting ground in the stretch, but I thought this debut was very promising for him. And the problem is now that you're stuck with part of an entry with another horse who's going out for the first time who could be okay as well.
Yeah, I mean, I scratched into this horse. I originally had Skytown on top, but there is nothing wrong with the way this horse ran first time out. I actually thought Kendrick gave this horse a good ride, and the winner, 3B's, got an even better ride from Ricardo Santana.
I
Backed
agree.
off a little bit from
Such a
keeping it
smart
real.
ride.
Yeah, you know, gave him a little bit of a breather and stuff. So a little green in the stretch, but it was a first time starter against more experienced runners, and I think today be much better for it. You know, for what it's worth, Danny Gargan's 4 for 13 with a 328 ROI, 6 in the money with 2-year-old second-time starters sprinting on the dirt at Naira. So for me, I end up scratching into this horse. I don't mind taking this horse. Again, I don't really shy away from entries all the time if I really have an opinion on a horse. And I thought that this horse was obviously like the second most likeliest winner. Now I just think this horse is, you know, probably going to benefit from that first race and run really well today and probably end up winning this race, unless the horse you have second, actually. I had a little interest that I put fourth.
Yeah, I don't know. You're hoping that he improves in his second start because it seemed as though that day maybe you didn't really want to be inside, but the winner of that race was inside the whole way. So I don't want to say, oh, he was against the racetrack if the winner of that race was hypothetically as well.
Yeah.
I know 3B's finished second in that race. 3B's is, of course, the horse that we were just talking about who came back to win that race over National Identity. He needs to take a step forward, though, and run quite a bit faster than he did first time out, and it's possible, but I think that National Identity has just shown us a lot more on the racetrack so far.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And in Mozambique's case, I just wonder if after the break and the way the surface, you know, just the way the horse was running that day with action a little bit green, if Jose Ortiz was like, all right, let's just throttle it down a little bit and give you, and give you a race and give you a tour of the track. So I think second time out now, putting the blinkers on, draws outside with Dylan today. I think this horse probably pop out of there a little bit better.
And you have Sunday Gilt in the mix, who comes out of a pretty productive race. So it seems Man in Finance seems like he could be a decent one. And Kenny B came back to win.
Yeah, and so did the 4th place finisher in there too, and they improved their figs. The 8th place finisher also came back to improve their figures too. He was up close early, which I liked, showed a little bit of life, and then kind of dropped back. Now has the inside post today, so we'll see if this horse breaks a little bit better and gets some good forward position on the inside. I don't think this horse will be on the lead by any means, but I kind of scratched into this horse now for a second. To me, it's now just National Identity's race to lose. We'll see if there's anything interesting going on when the race comes up with the board with any of the first-time starters that are in here.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Free Dance has a chance as well, as you do. Really took a step forward in that second start, running behind National Identity with a stumble at the break. I wish that Man of Mischief showed something last time because he
Yeah,
had
there
those
was just
two
nothing there.
races
Yeah.
at Saratoga that seemed like they were okay, even though they hadn't been super productive moving forwards, but I don't know about him, and he's been a short price that's a little bit more exposed at this point. As we move on to race number 8, and we have another stakes race for the 2-year-old fillies. We are on the turf in here, and we did lose a pace player with the scratch of Lorice for George Weaver, but I think there's going to still be some horses that are going to run and
Yeah.
gun from the gate, especially with me, Governor, from the Carlos David barn, because this horse has been running in those 5 furlong sprints at Gulfstream, and you have to imagine that this one is going to go. And I think that that's the case for Anna Skall as well, who took the field gate to wire in her first start. And I mean, she had some excuses going a little bit further at Woodbine in that Grade 1 Talma. It was kind of a weird day at Woodbine where you seemed like you wanted to be a little bit more forward, and she was, but then she just didn't really have much to offer. But with her debut, I mean, we did see the second place finisher of that race come back to win impressively with Disco Star.
Yeah, listen, I think that she wants to sprint. I really do. When you watch her run, and you talk about the debut race, I mean, she was so sharp in that race, too. I was around for Epping Forest for a dam.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, watching Epping Forest run, she runs like her mom does when you watch her stride and everything. But as far as, like, the debut goes, I mean, she was popped right on top, and she ran such a good race that day. You could have rode her
Me?
and won. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Might have to lose a couple pounds.
I don't
and
know. I'd have to lose a few. I mean, I'd have to lose a few. I
Shrink
think
a little bit.
to get on there. But no, she ran exceptionally well in the debut. She probably well. I'm not sure. It was a big ask to go into a Grade 1 and go a mile up at Woodbine last time out. And, you know, I mean, Frankie had her in good position. It's just she didn't really kick on with that kind of same, you know, punch that she had in the sprint race. So I love the cutback for her. I think that in this spot, she's probably going to get to survey everything from outside and see what she wants to do, if she wants to be up front or if she just wants to sit off of it. So I think she's a big player today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I'm switching order of videos on you, Eddie, but we can take a look at her debut win, which was very impressive over Disco Star, like we were discussing. And I think that going up to challenge those races at Woodbine, you have to see if you have a Breeders' Cup horse or not.
Yeah.
And so I don't blame anyone for taking those opportunities to find out if she is going to stretch out in distance and be able to go contend at Del Mar as she would be right now if that were the case. She did improve a little bit in terms of her buyer speed figure. I think that's more a function of running in a Grade 1 against horses that you can't bring that figure down enough in terms of making it really make sense for where she actually ran. But I don't know. I think that with her, she might have a little bit more pace to contend with in here, but not that she can't handle it. She does draw okay towards the outside of that speed. But I went to You Gotta Have Hope, who I thought ran very well, switching over to the turf and behind Abiento, who did not really do much running yesterday, but that was the Breeders' Cup, so I don't want to hold that against her. I thought this was a good effort. I think that she was one of the pace players in the pace that ended up coming apart in the later stages. I think that she was caught a little bit wider than some of the other horses in this race, and I think that she was dealing with a very good horse that was able to run her down in a well-timed ride with Dylan Davis aboard Abiento, who seems to be a decent one that we'll see on this circuit again, hopefully. But she fought all the way to the wire in here and just gets beat a little bit for third.
Yeah, that was the good part of that race, was that didn't pack it in after
Yep.
getting past and actually ran through to the wire. She was the first to attack that pace, too. So I thought she ran well in there. I have no problems with her. I have her second in here. It's just they're going to be the two logical horses,
Right.
you know, that are in here.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the issue from a betting standpoint. But from a visual standpoint, they are two of the horses that have run some of the best races in here.
Right, and you have a little interest in the number 6, Strong Like Sarah. There is plenty of turf pedigree for this one.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when you look at the siblings and you look at Castle Rock and Share the Blessing, they've both sprinted successfully on the grass, and the second dam broke her maiden going a mile on the turf. I think that if there is significant pace in here, I think this is one of the horses that you're going to look for late to come from off the pace in here. Just
Alright.
based on the way that she is running, the way that she's looked. I know her race at 6 at Monmouth was a wire-to-wire effort, but she did a little bit of running in spots at Laurel in the mud. I just think she wants to sprint as opposed to going a mile.
Maybe she wants the turf as well. And she's a big price as we move on to the 9th race. And we're going 1.125 miles on the grass. Start optional claiming for $35,000. And this is a race where I feel as though we both agree that Victory Dash is the likely speed in here, but we're dealing with a lot of horses that have had some opportunities to
Yeah.
face each other multiple occasions, and you went for one that just did not seem happy with the position that he was in that last start.
No, tons of starters, and I go with one of the probably unreliable horses in the group from a win standpoint.
Well, they're all a little
But
unreliable.
to your point though, I don't think that this horse really wanted to be in the spot that Kendrick had the horse in last time. He got really ranked last time, and then he had to go wide in the turns. And then even in the starts before that, 2 starts back, he ended up 5 and 6 wide at one point. 3 starts back, he got steadied off of things. I don't know. I think he's got a really good inside post today that maybe he's a little bit more forward and a little bit more closer. And I think he's better posted than some of the horses on the outside, like the 11 and 12, who have kind of looks as well. I thought he was going to offer a better price than the horse I picked second as well, who had his problems in the 7. So I don't know. At the end of the day, I settled on a horse who I know was 3 for 31, but I was just hoping we'd get a nice break on the inside, find a nice, good settling spot, not get rank, and make one run late.
I mean, I don't blame you for trying to take a price in here because I agree. I think the Steadfast Resolve and Heathguard could be players, but they're both projecting to get wide trips in here, and I think that's been the problem with Heathguard in many of his past starts, and I don't necessarily know that that problem is resolved today. I went to Brigade Commander. He's run well on both the turf and the dirt, and he is going second off the claim for Ray Handel now, coming back to the turf, and I thought that he ran okay in a race where you really did want to be saving ground in that race at Saratoga, losing to Transactional. And I think that he and Barnstorming both ran pretty well in that spot, but he draws a little bit more towards the inside. He's got a couple of different things changing with different connections now. I know that he had some of his faster races overall on the dirt, so I don't blame Ray for wanting to get him back to that surface and see what he could do there. But that was a decent field that he faced last time out in comparison to, I think, this one relative to the competition. So I don't know. He's faced some tougher horses on the dirt. He seems to run not quite as fast on the turf in all reality, but I think that he's just been running against competition that might be a little bit ahead of where he could be super competitive on the dirt in the past. And I think that now Dylan Davis coming back aboard as he did last time, switching back to the turf, maybe he's one that could show some of that finish that he did in that race last time on the grass.
I mean, there's enough speed probably on paper to hopefully set his kick up if he does come from off the pace today, you would think.
You would think.
Between the 2, the 5, the show speed, I think, stretching out, even the 3.
You have a little interest in Modica. I ended up putting this horse a little bit further down, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't love that race 2 back when he was on the turf, but I think the one before that, it just shows sort of what level of competition he wants to face, and this could be it.
It could be. I just feel like 2 starts back, he did get into a little, it wasn't significant trouble, but he did get into a little bit of trouble. And then they went back to the dirt, and the dirt race wasn't that bad at all, behind treaty obligation. So I don't know. I think getting back to the turf, he's going to be a short price. My whole thinking of this race was I did not want to take a short price on top.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of shifted gears. And, we talked about the 12 a little bit, being on the outside. And I agree with you from a standpoint with Heathguard that, its lack of speed just makes him just get wide trips all the time. What's going to be different today?
Right, and that's been the problem, and that's the case to make, but he's outside again. So, and then I took a look at Frontman getting in because I have a little bit of an affinity for this horse, but his last race was bad.
Yeah, his last race was not good.
He ran a couple of good efforts earlier this year, but the last race was just not one that I could take him off of. So he might be heading into a period of time where he's not in the same kind of form that he was in earlier this year.
No, and I think when you look at this race and you look at horses like Victory Dash, who's going to be forward in here, but there might be faster sprint speed stretching out. Do you want him at a short price that he's going to finish?
No.
Brigade Commander, again, question is, are we going to see the race that we saw a couple of starts back from him at a short price? The 7, again, got into a little bit of trouble last time, but is he better against claimers? The 11 just broke his maiden. Yeah, he swooped the field and passed about 10 horses in the blink of an eye. But again, now you're facing
After
winners for
many
the first time.
opportunities.
Drawn post 11.
Yep.
Same deal with the 12.
Yep.
So this is a tough little race in here. And if you like somebody that's a price, you should hang your hat
Go
on
for
them.
it.
in
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. I always like that logic. As we'll move on to race number 10, it is the Tempted Stakes. We are going a mile for those 2-year-old fillies, and Stunner is going to be a heavy favorite coming into this race, and we can take a look at her dominant victory where she was just able to run away from this field. She is, of course, the horse that had finished second first time out to Senza Parole, a horse that there was a lot of buzz on as being one of the top 2-year-old fillies who will hopefully get the chance to see in the 3-year-old season next year. She is on the bench for now, but I don't know. I thought that she was ultra professional. I thought that she improved significantly, running 10 buyer points faster in that second start. I don't really see the stretch out being a problem for her. She's just way the horse to beat, but you have an idea with Wild Mama.
Yeah, I probably should have sent in the replay for Wild Mama last time out too, because, the horse had the nice outside post last time, which you like to see with a first-time starter, and was forward in there, kind of opened up and took over when Johnny gave the horse, her cue, and it was really just a nice education race for her. And, she kind of got a little, I don't want to say unfocused when she got a big lead, but Johnny kept her to task and kept her straight and kept her to the wire. But, I mean, this horse has a huge pedigree and the huge price tag to go along with it, and I thought that she ran well in that debut. And I think when you look at a horse like Stunner, who's going to take a lot of money in here, and listen, rightfully so, Flavian did a great job last time out, let that horse roll, and you could see how powerful that she, went in the lane in the replay that we saw. I just wonder if today, break it from the inside, maybe, I mean, you're going to assume that she's probably at the end of the day going to be in front. We'll see what some of the outside horses do in here and if they press her. And I'm just thinking Wild Mama might get a nice trip off of the speed again today from that experience and be able to roll at a price because she looked good in the stretch. She's going to have to get faster. There's no doubt about that. Based on the first race, she's going to have to get faster. But she did look good in that debut, so I'm going to give her a shot today. And Javier knows what he's doing. Javier's a fine
He'll be
replacement.
okay out
Yeah,
there.
he'll be fine out there with Johnny.
Yeah, no, I mean, her debut was impressive, and this is not exactly connections that are known for firing first time out, but when they do, it's usually with a horse that ends up being pretty live moving forwards. And the other contender that's obvious on paper is Impulse Buy, who did improve quite a bit in her second start at Keeneland, going from a 69 to an 83 buyer. She seems to be working very well coming into this spot for Rudy Brissett. And I don't know. I mean, I thought that at a similar price, she certainly seemed like one who made a lot of sense. But at the same time, opening weekend at Keeneland, inside speed playing very well. We saw East Avenue not get out of the gate yesterday, but he was one of those horses that was coming off a big figure front running score that weekend at Keeneland. And I just wonder if she was helped a little bit by the racetrack. Not that she wasn't running well and clearly demolished the rest of this field, but I just wonder if it's actually a comparable race to what we saw from Stunner last time out.
I'm not sure because I don't think the field was all that tough that she blew out. Listen, she physically looks the part. I mean, she's big, she's strong, and she's got a nice little stride. She's got a presence about her when you watch her. But I wonder if she wants. I know that she won really easily, and maybe she may have been with the Tragotos. I question the mile a little bit for her. I wonder if she wants to stay going 7 or a little bit shorter. We'll find out today. She got a nice outside post, and I wonder if she's the horse early on that may put the pressure on Stunner.
Potentially, as she does have a little bit of pedigree to handle going a little bit further, but it's not as though it's some marathon routing pedigree. And then the Queen's MG, who is just sort of that question mark of what do you do with her, because I think you can easily excuse the spin away, and she seems like one that when she's a big price, she shows up, and when she's not, she doesn't always. But this was a race where she was bet. She wins the Adirondack. It seems at first like this is a good price to take on a horse who has multiple stakes victories and is the only one to be able to tout that coming in. But I just don't know if she wants to stretch out in distance, and she was a gate scratch last time out in the Frizette. So I just don't know if she's one that's going to take that next step forward in terms of her numbers as a 2-year-old still, or if we've sort of seen her be the one at that time that was the best and the most developed.
Yeah, I have her 4th in here.
I do too.
I don't know if the mile is going to get her where she needs to be, but I do think, though, at least she's the most accomplished
She is.
runner in
Yeah.
here from that standpoint. And I also think we know that she can sit off of a pace and at
Yes.
least finish. So I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, you could forget about the spin away because the trip just didn't work out for her and the surface.
And Immersive came back to
yeah,
win the
yeah.
Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
So
there's
I mean,
also
it's
that.
just that just didn't work out for her. I think this is a better spot. I think the question is just, getting the mile and getting back off of that race and the gate scratch that she was in. But I think this is another race that's really interesting because you have horses like Stunner and Impulse Buy that are going to take the majority of the money in here, and they have questions to be answered stepping into stakes for the first time. And that's why I think I settled on a little bit more of a price instead of taking the favorites in here.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all, as we'll get to the finale on today's card. And honestly, Paul, this is the only race where I looked at this race and had a very strong opinion and was excited to place a bet on a horse and had a lot of confidence in one because it's just that kind of card. And we'll start with, though, Brian and Cooper, who you ended up picking on top in here. The start of this race did not go well for this horse whatsoever, and she really had things totally against her from the get.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see here first on the pan shot that she kind of got off a little bit slow and then kind of taken back. She got knocked a little bit sideways, and we'll see the head on, I think, in a second, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better about what happened to her at the start. And it completely took her out of position, and made her have to come from last in there. And you'll see right here, she's the 8. And you can see she kind of gets off a little sideways, and then she gets bumped by the 7 horse as well. So that just takes her out of her game period. So, and had to come from last in there. I think
there was no pace in that race.
no,
whatsoever.
none whatsoever on top of that. So that put her behind the 8 ball as well. So I think today, with a better break today and a better trip, hopefully from the inside draw, she'll be a little bit better off. For what it's worth, Chad Brown's 8 for 26 with a 237 ROI, 15 in the money, with 2-year-old second time starting fillies on turf here at Naira the last 5 years. So we know that his fillies can always run well. We know there's always second time improvement. So based off that trouble line, I want to take this horse today. I'm not going to get probably much of a price on this horse at the end of the day. It's a big field. Maybe she'll get lost a little bit, but she's probably going to end up being the favorite.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But she has every right to improve, and she had no chance, even if she did break well, being that far back in that race that was dominated forwards. I went to the number 11, Lady Delilah, who comes out of a race where we did see some horses run back well, and I think that was a day where you didn't necessarily want to be right on the inside on the turf, and that was the whole case to be made for that horse that ended up bolting on the turn in the Miss Grillo. What is her name? Marvelous?
Marvelous.
It's not Marvelous Maud.
No,
that's what I always want to say.
I'll
look it up.
I just remember me, you, and Acacia at the desk be like, whoa, like
Yeah.
when that horse took off.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, but look, this is one of the horses that was right on the inside for that entire race, and I think that she was one of the only ones making a significant move from the back, and we did see, of course, who knows what that horse would have done if in the Miss Grillo if she had made the turn and was able to keep a straight path.
Marvelous Madison?
Yes, I think
Madison.
that's it.
Marvelous Madison.
I'll look it up. I have the internet right here. I guess I could find out.
The world is at your fingertips,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I think it was
what
Marvelous
age are we
Madison.
living in? But look, I think with her, she is going to have to take another step forward. Maybe the blinkers will help her show a little bit more speed. But we did see the horse who was your pace setter in that race come back and run second again. So it seems as though that angle has some legs to it in terms of being one that you want to follow going forwards. And then the other logical horse in this race is Willful Mama, who I don't see anything wrong with. I just didn't necessarily want to pick on top, and I know you didn't either, but she can definitely win.
Yeah, I mean, got a nice ride and got a nice trip in that race last time out. So doesn't have a ton of pedigree either when you look at her. So, I mean, that was a really nice effort for her, getting on the grass for the first time and stretching out. I mean, she is what she is, and she's going to take money in here. And Anna Summers Day is in this race as well, who scratched out, obviously, was on the AE list. But,
Marvelous Madison, you are correct.
All right. I got something right today.
Good job,
It's always
Paul.
good when you start off the day with something like that early.
It
But
sure is.
nice trip in here for this horse. Completely logical in here. I just don't know. We'll see if she can do it from post number 8 today and in a bigger, bulkier field here
Yeah, I thought she saved quite a bit of ground in
Yeah.
that race. She can certainly win this one, but I wanted to hopefully look for some upside with others. And then I like Pocket Queens a little bit going out first time for the Clement barn. He does well in these types of races with his 2-year-olds, first time starters. There isn't overwhelming pedigree, especially in the production on the dam side, but there is plenty of turf to suggest that this one could be a price that I want to throw in the mix in here. And I think we both don't want to discount the other Chad Brown, though I didn't. If I looked at that horse without connections, it's not as though I would say, oh, this is the horse that I have to have on my ticket.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the dam side. 69 buyer and the only turf start for her. And listen, I know it's a Vino Rosso on top, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with this kind of horse. I kind of feel like sometimes too when Chad has multiple horses, and you got to look at the longer price one.
Yes,
As well,
the other Chad.
yeah, the other Chad usually sneaks in there somewhere. But I'll take my chances that Brian and Cooper improves off that trouble at the start and gets a fairer pace to run at today.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that whatsoever. As that wraps things up for the Breeders' Cup Saturday edition of Talking Horses. And if it seems like we need more coffee up here, it's because we do. But you want to head on over to Naira Bets and make sure that you are signed up for all of the action here today, as well as the Breeders' Cup races out at Del Mar. You can bet them all and get that $200 bonus and a $25 free bet with the promo code CUP25, or scan that QR code, head on over to nairabets.com and get signed up. And when you're over there, you can also check out the track stats. You can find out how the track is playing, get plenty of insight on where you want to be on the racetrack to be most effective, and use that to your advantage to cash in some of that bonus money that you'll be getting with your sign up. And we are all about the bonuses here. You got another bonus available, a 10% exacta profit boost. If you hit any exacta in the Breeders' Cup race at Del Mar, you'll get a 10% bonus. Be sure to opt in over at Naira Bets to get a little bit more bang for your buck. And then we have plenty of coverage today as well. Stakes action coverage starts at 11 a.m., which is in 15 minutes. So I guess I should better head on upstairs to hang out with Greg Wolf for a little bit.
Oh, you're run early.
Yeah. Yeah.
No rest for the weary.
Well, that's how it goes around here, but that's all right. Plenty of exciting racing coming up, and that is what keeps us plenty awake and energized for the rest of the day. Classic pick?
I
don't. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. That was Captain Obvious right there. You know what? I'm going to just go with my heart and go with Forever Young.
All right.
Big fan all year.
I think he is the likeliest winner if he can get himself out of that one position, but I'm going to go with Next. I know that the distance is a question. I don't expect him to be on the lead in here. We'll see if he can establish a comfortable rhythm towards the outside, but looking forward to all of the action here, as well as that Breeders' Cup action all coming up. And be sure that you are betting through Naira Bets. Good luck today, everyone.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.